Hey, Dr. Dean,
Good morning.
can you show me how to find the monthly payment?
I'm sorry?
Can you show me how to find the monthly payment? Like how we gotta find the monthly payment and like the interest rate. I know how to find that. I just don't know how to find like the monthly payment.
Um, I guess it depends on what you're talking about.
Like the Weber sign,
Stuff and let's see.
like in Weber sign, it might ask us for the interest rate. Then after that, it might ask us for the monthly payment.
So, um, the monthly payment for a credit card.
I guess.
Um, well, if it's general, then credit it's in 7.3. So you can look at those lessons on Jinzabar.
All right.
Because I have all of the slides with all of the um, equations and stuff on e-learning. Let's see. So if you go to Math 110 lessons, that has all of the slides that we're going to be going over. It's got all the slides that we went over previously and the ones that we're going to be going over in the future. So open that up and then go to, it'll look like this. And go down to 7.3. So it's this one. So it's S 7.3, not just 7.3. Regular 7.3 was geometry, I think. Yeah. All right. So give a couple minutes people to log in. And for those hanging out, if you want to go look at 7.6, read over it. That's what we're going to be going over today. All right, so I guess we will get started. As discussed, today we're going to finish up this section on percents with talking about buying a home, which is supplemental 7.6. And then we're going to go over how the test is going to work, and what the sections and study guides are over. And I'll post the study guide today. Go ahead and do that now, actually. So let's see. So buying a house. So to purchase a home, most people get what is called a mortgage. I'm sure most of you guys have heard this term before, which is a large amount of money used to cover nearly the full selling price of the house. If you fail to pay your mortgage payment, the lender has the right to foreclose on your home. This means that they can take your house back, and you don't get anything for it. Or you only get any money for it if you've paid over half, pretty much over half of your mortgage loan. Otherwise, you don't have anything, what's called equity in the house. But that's the idea, is that you have this giant loan and the bank is ready and willing to kick you out of it if they can. Well, maybe that's not really fair. Most of them aren't really that bad, but it's a business to them. So this is how they go about calculating how much you owe them. So generally you have to pay a down payment of 3 to 5% of the home's selling price. They prefer 10 to 20%. I think we paid on my house like 15% down. So the amount that you pay down, it must be cash. And you also have to prove that it was cash that you kind of already had and it was not borrowed from somewhere else. So lots of disclosure of banking statements, lots of ridiculous stuff. But they basically need to know that you have money. Otherwise, the likelihood that you'll pay it back is obviously pretty low. So another big deal with that down payment thing is the larger the down payment that you have, often the better interest rate you get. So not only are you having a smaller principal on your loan, remembering back to our PRT basic equation, having a smaller P reduces the amount of interest you pay, but so does having smaller R. So usually if you have a larger down payment, you save yourself on both. You also have a bunch of fees that go into it. Closing costs, lawyer fees, origination fees. You have to usually get somebody from the county to come out and inspect it. All sorts of different things. It's a huge deal, and it is not it's not like just going out and buying a house. Maybe some rich people can just like throw some money at somebody and be like, I want your house. But it is generally not that easy. Hold on. Got some issues happening. All right. So here we go. Yeah. So there's, like I said, there's a lot that goes into this. So we're going to look at, we're not going to calculate the interest rate, but know that the APR of a mortgage is not a true APR like we dealt with in the past. It's actually an adjusted APR to count for various other costs. All right. The quoted interest rate on the loan is the most important thing to consider rather than the adjusted interest rate. Monthly payment is determined by the length of the loan, usually 30 years. Sometimes they will do it in a shorter 15-year loan, so your payments are going to be a lot higher, but you also usually get a much better interest rate. But most people go for the 30-year mortgage. The amount of the down payment, at least 5% for conventional mortgages, and the interest rate. Longer the loan, the higher the down payment, lower the interest rate, the lower the payment. However, longer loans also cost more overall. So that's the other thing to consider is, yeah, your payment might be smaller, but if you're paying it over 30 years as opposed to 15, then do the math and it adds up very quickly. So this shows some data for $120,000 mortgage at 8%. Zero down payment over 30 years, your monthly payment is $880, but your total amount paid is $320,000 almost. Whereas if you put down the same amount and paid it off in 20 years, your total amount paid is only $240,000. So just by how long it takes you to pay it off, that considerably changes the amount of overall cost that hits you. So look at the difference between these two columns, and it's kind of remarkable. So with most of these, there is no penalty to paying it off early. You just have this definite total amount you're going to have to pay. But you can do things like refinance, which I'm sure some of you guys may have heard parents talking about. This is often get a better interest rate, and the older you get, usually the better job you have, so you can pay it off even faster. So the process of, process of paying off a mortgage involves multiplying the full amount owed by the monthly interest rate, then paying the payment that covers the interest and some portion of the principal. If you've ever heard that phrase that you pay the interest up front, this is because the lower your principal gets, the less interest is being paid each month. Determining the amount payment has a special formula. while it is fun to derive for nerdy math people, the formula is given in the two below forms. So principal rate 1 plus rate to the n over 1 plus rate to the n minus 1. Or you can combine these two terms into something that looks like this. So capital R is usually the adjusted monthly interest rate, and N is equal to 12 months times the time of the loan. Total number of payments. Note that the usual P is principal and little r interest rate, T number of years still applies. So either of these two formulas are correct. It's actually the same formula, but depending on you personally, you may find it easier to use one or the other. So it's entirely up to you. But let's just take a gander at what this stuff actually looks like. Most people have programs that will do this for them, but we've got to understand, and this is a good rule in life, I think, for everyone, is it's great to use calculators, to use these higher, fancier programs. And that's the whole point of having a machine, is to let them do the work that is kind of repetitive. They can do that stuff very, very fast. But we still need to understand what's actually going on in the machine, what's going on in the equations. Because if we don't, then we don't really understand what we're doing. And that's a big deal. Whenever you're solving a problem, remember, it's all about understanding the problem. And that's one of the first things we talked about, is actually understanding what the thing is asking is the first step to solving a problem. So let's do an example. Previous table said that a $120,000 mortgage at 8% for 30 years has a payment of $880.52. Let's verify this with the formula we were given, and then see how this changes if the interest rate is only 4%. Okay, so going to write our little equation up here, and want y'all to tell me what goes in where. So look at it for a second while I write it up. Okay. All right. So what on that slide goes where? So it's $120,000 loan, 8% interest rate for 30 years. what goes in a little space up here?
Would 8% be R or 4%?
So little r is 8%. But I guess I'll write the letters up here. But what is big R?
$120,000.
No, that's P.
Maybe 4-1.
No. So big R is the monthly rate. So it's little r over 12. And in this case, it is 0, 0, 6, 6 on forever. All right? Okay, so what else? We've got big R, which is 0.066. We'll just say big What about N? It's the last one we need. What is N?
Would it be 30? 30 years?
So you're on the right track. It's definitely going to have something to do with T, which is 30 years. So remember, in our original equation, it had something that looked like this: 1 plus little r to the t, right? But we changed this into r divided by 12. So we changed it into a monthly thing. So we have to change the other one into the monthly thing. So t equals 30 years. What does n equal?
Would it be 360?
You are correct. It is 360. And how did you get that?
I did 30 times 12.
Right.
Just 12 months in a year.
Yeah. So we had to make this smaller because we made this smaller because we divided it by 12. But we're making the interest rate smaller, but we're compounding it more often, monthly. So we get 12 times 30. So plug that in. And we get 360. So if we do this part, we get 1 plus 0.0. We get almost 11 right here. It's 10.95. Subtract 1. And then 1 divided by that plus 1. So for this whole thing, I get about 1.1. And if you multiply that by these two things, I get the correct answer, which was 880.85. There could be some issue there just from rounding, but so be it. So that's what we get. Pretty simple, straightforward. It's what we expected to get. But now, the only thing we're going to do is change the rate from 8% to 4%. So if this is now 4%, what does that equal? So it's just half as big now, because R is half as big. So R over 12 is half as big as it was. So this is 0.0033 on forever. Zero, zero, 3, 3. And if we plug that in, I get, instead of almost 11 here, this bottom thing, I get 3.3. Minus 1, and divided by that, plus 1. So I get, this whole thing becomes about 1.4. And you multiply it out, you get 572.89. All right. So just having a very small percent difference, we have no change in the principal, no change in the time, nothing else. Just going from 8% to 4% is a big deal. So hopefully, if you ever decide you want to buy a house, a lot of people just don't even want the headache. Hopefully your real estate agent tries for you, but make sure that you also try to fight for every percent you can on that loan. We had an awkward situation when we bought our house. We were right at I want to say 3.7-ish%. And things were looking pretty good. And then all of the banks did a timeout because there was some big financial news that was about to happen. So they put a pause on all the loan applications. And then when they came back, because something bad happened, our interest rate went up by almost a full point. I think it went from like 3.7 to like 4.5 something, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? But it was huge. It was about $100 a month, I think, or maybe 120 a month difference. Just this tiny little 0.5%. So don't let anything sneak by you. I guess pay attention. The fact that and the same kind of idea usually goes with car loans. If you're going to get a long one, so the percent is a lot more powerful than you might think. So keep that kind of in your mind when you go through this kind of stuff. It's not usually just an extra 1%. The amount that you end up paying is going to be very different. We'll just say. That was the last little bit we wanted to do, talking about home percentages. So I guess now we'll go over how the test stuff is going to look. Okay, sorry. All right. So this is going to be how our tests work for the rest of the semester. They will be online tests, and they will be done through WebAssign. So if for some reason you have not signed up, please do as soon as humanly possible. Otherwise, it's not going to go well. Tests will be timed. You will have 75 minutes to complete each attempt. I'll go over that in a second. Do not open any attempt unless you are ready to take the exam right then and there. The timer of 75 minutes will start as soon as you open the test. So even if you open it, close it out, it doesn't matter. It's going to start the timer, and after 75 minutes, it will close. So again, these tests are done through WebAssign, and it will look like just like your other assignments, but it will say test on it. It'll also have a little clock because it's timed. You will have two normal attempts that you can open up the test, take it, and the way I calculate your grade is I look at these two, and I find the higher of the two attempts, and I take that as your test grade for that assignment. So if you do well on the first one, if you get a 90 or something, and you're like, I don't care, that's great, I'm not going to worry about it, then you don't have to take the other one. I would suggest taking at least one of them, but again, you do not have to take both of them if you are happy with the grade you got on the first one. You will also have one additional attempt that if you end up requiring it for whatever reason, it starts at 80%. So the highest grade you can get from that one is 80%. Okay. The other two, I have for I give you 2 attempts because you never know. Stuff could happen. But the idea is I can't just issue an infinite number of attempts on a test. That's not how it works. But because it is, distance education, I like to have a couple attempts just in case something goes wrong. You are welcome, and this is optional, to submit. Where's my mouse? To submit pictures or scans of the work you did for partial credit. So right after you're done doing the test, if you want to send me copies of either pictures of it or scan it if you have a scanner, you want to send me that. If you got a question wrong, I can use that partial credit or that work for partial credit. The test will open Tuesday morning, and it will be available through Friday at 5 p.m. With that, even if you're in the middle of a test on Friday at 5, it will close. So don't start a test at 4:50 and then be surprised when it closes itself on that Friday. You can do it any time of the day before then, so just make sure you do it before then. I highly suggest, and this goes with doing the homework stuff in general, that you use, or anything on WebAssign in general, that you use Chrome, Google Chrome, or Firefox. I have seen a handful of issues with people doing stuff on Safari, and I've seen a ton of issues with Internet Explorer, also known as Microsoft Edge. You can attempt it in those 2 browsers, but it's not going to go, it's likely it will not go well for you. So Chrome is free, Firefox is free, and Chrome, you can download it on your phone, or if you only have Mac products in your house, you can still use it. Like it doesn't care what kind of system you have. You can download it for either one. And, if you only ever want to use it for that one thing, then that's fine. But I highly suggest Chrome or Firefox. Also with these, there is a save button as well as a submit button. The save button allows you to put an answer in, and if you click save, it will keep that answer just in case you don't get back to it and don't actually submit it. But if you don't save anything in there, it will, when it closes, it will just think you didn't answer anything. So please remember to save your work. If you're not sure about an answer, but you want to move on, you don't want to submit it, then you can do that. What does this cover? Chapters S 4.3. So the idea is it is in the supplemental text, which we went over, is we're probably going to get cut off here. So I want to show it. The supplemental book looks like this, and it's one of the ones that should have been added, but if you for some reason didn't, the stuff for it is in the syllabus, and the ebook, that chapter 7 is applications of percent.